The massive starship UES Prometheus drifted silently through the dark edges of space, far from any known star system. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge, watching the strange readings dance across his screens. After 3 months of deep space exploration, his crew of 200 had grown used to the endless void, but today something was different. "Captain, you need to see this," called Lieutenant Emma Hayes from her station. Her voice carried a mix of excitement and worry that made Webb's stomach tighten. Emma was one of his best officers, and she rarely got rattled. Webb walked over to her console, his heavy boots echoing in the quiet bridge. The sensor display showed energy patterns unlike anything in their databases. The readings pulsed in a steady rhythm, like a massive heartbeat somewhere in the darkness ahead. "How far out?" Webb asked, studying the impossible numbers scrolling down the screen. "Approximately 50,000 kilometers, sir. But Captain, the energy signature is enormous. Whatever's creating this, it's bigger than anything we've ever encountered." Chief Engineer Tom Harrison looked up from his station, wiping grease from his hands with an old cloth. He had been fine-tuning the ship's systems all morning, preparing for their next jump to hyperspace. "Sir, I'm picking up some kind of gravitational distortion as well. It's subtle, but it's there." Webb felt his pulse quicken. First contact protocols ran through his mind, but this felt different from the alien civilizations they had met before joining the Galactic Council. Those had been predictable, following patterns that scientists understood. This was something else entirely. "Take us in closer," Webb ordered. "But keep our distance. I want to know what we're dealing with before we commit to anything." The Prometheus turned gracefully, its advanced engines pushing them toward the source of the mysterious signals. As they drew nearer, the bridge crew began to murmur among themselves. Through the main view screen, something was becoming visible against the star field. Dr. James Parker, the ship's lead scientist, rushed onto the bridge carrying a tablet full of data. His usually neat hair was messy, and his eyes were wide with amazement. "Captain, preliminary scans suggest we're looking at some kind of artificial structure. The materials don't match anything in our periodic table." Webb stared ahead as the object resolved into clarity. It was a perfect ring, easily 50 kilometers across, made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ring rotated slowly, and strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with a soft blue light that pulsed in time with the energy readings. "My God," whispered Navigation Officer Rachel Moore. "How old do you think it is?" "Old enough to predate any civilization we know about," Parker replied, his voice filled with scientific wonder. "Captain, this could be the archaeological discovery of the millennium. If we can study this structure, learn how it was built, the advances in our understanding of physics alone could." "Sir." Security Chief Lisa Bennett interrupted from the tactical station. "I'm detecting a power build-up inside the ring. Something's happening." Webb felt the familiar weight of command settle on his shoulders. Every instinct told him to retreat, to report back to Earth and let the experts decide how to proceed. But the opportunity was incredible. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 5 years, and they were still seen as newcomers by the older civilizations. A discovery like this could change everything. "Maintain position," Webb decided. "All stations, full sensor sweep. I want to know everything about this structure before we make our next move." The minutes ticked by as the crew worked. The energy readings continued to climb, and the symbols on the ring began to glow brighter. Inside the ring's hollow center, space itself seemed to shimmer and bend, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. "Captain," Emma called out, her voice tight with alarm. "The gravitational distortions are increasing exponentially. Whatever this thing is powering up to do, it's about to happen." Webb gripped the armrests of his command chair. "Harrison, can we get us out of here if we need to?" "Engines are ready, sir. But Captain, the distortions are affecting our navigation systems. I'm not sure our jump calculations would be accurate." Before Webb could respond, the ancient ring flared with brilliant light. The shimmer inside its center suddenly expanded, revealing not empty space but something else entirely. It looked like a tunnel made of liquid starlight, stretching away into dimensions that human eyes weren't meant to see. "It's some kind of gateway," Parker breathed, his scientific mind racing to understand what they were witnessing. A doorway to somewhere else. The pull came without warning. One moment the Prometheus was holding position at a safe distance, and the next they were being drawn toward the ring like a piece of metal toward a magnet. Webb felt the deck plates vibrate under his feet as the engines strained against the invisible force. "Full reverse," Webb shouted. "All available power to engines." "No good, sir," Harrison replied, his hands flying over his controls. The pull is too strong. We're going in whether we want to or not. Around them, reality began to twist and stretch. The stars outside bent into impossible shapes, and colors that had no names painted the darkness. Webb felt his consciousness stretching, pulled in directions that didn't exist in normal space. The last thing he saw before everything went black was Emma's face, illuminated by the wild energy surrounding them, her mouth open in a scream he couldn't hear over the sound of the universe tearing itself apart. Then the Prometheus and all 200 souls aboard disappeared completely, leaving only empty space where they had been. The ancient ring continued its slow rotation for a few more moments, then powered down, becoming just another piece of cosmic debris drifting in the endless dark. Back in civilized space, automated distress beacons would soon alert the Galactic Council to the ship's disappearance. But by then, it would be far too late for any rescue mission to matter. Captain Marcus Webb woke up slowly, his head pounding like a drum. The bridge around him looked the same, but something felt wrong. The usual hum of the ship's engines was different, deeper somehow. Through the main view screen, where stars should have been, he saw walls made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft light. "Status report," Webb said, pulling himself upright in his command chair. His crew was stirring around him, looking confused and scared. Lieutenant Emma Hayes checked her instruments with shaking hands. "Sir, all our navigation systems are showing impossible readings. We're not in normal space anymore. We're inside something huge, like a hollow moon made of crystal." Dr. James Parker stumbled to his science station, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. This place is alive somehow. The walls are responding to our presence, monitoring us." Webb looked around the bridge. Most of his crew seemed unhurt, just shaken. But through the view screen, he could see that their situation was far from normal. The Prometheus was sitting on what looked like a platform inside a massive chamber. The crystal walls stretched up and away until they disappeared into darkness. "Sir," called Navigation Officer Rachel Moore, her voice tight with worry. "I'm detecting movement in the walls. Sections are opening up, revealing new chambers." As if responding to her words, large sections of the crystal walls began to slide apart. Behind them, Webb could see rooms filled with swirling energy storms, moving mechanical shapes, and environments that shifted and changed every few seconds. Chief Engineer Tom Harrison wiped sweat from his face as he studied his readings. "Captain, this isn't random. The whole structure is designed like some kind of testing facility. It's waiting for us to do something." "Testing us for what?" Webb asked, though he had a growing suspicion he didn't want confirmed. The answer came within hours. As the crew tried to establish their bearings, the crystal chamber began to change around them. The platform they sat on started moving, carrying the Prometheus deeper into the structure. New chambers opened ahead of them, each one presenting a different challenge. The first test was simple. Energy barriers blocked their path, and the ship's weapons had no effect on them. It was Dr. Parker who figured out the solution. "Captain, the barriers respond to specific energy frequencies. We need to match our shield harmonics to theirs." It took 3 days of careful work, but they managed to tune their shields correctly. The barriers dissolved, and they moved forward. Behind them, the chamber sealed itself, making retreat impossible. The second test was harder. Creatures made of pure energy attacked the ship, passing through their hull like it was air. Security Chief Lisa Bennett and her team tried every weapon they had, but nothing worked. "They're not really alive," Parker realized after studying the creatures for hours. "There's some kind of program, designed to test our problem-solving skills." Emma Hayes found the solution by accident. While working on the sensor array, she discovered that the creatures fled from certain types of electromagnetic pulses. "It's like they're allergic to specific frequencies," she explained. Months passed. Each new chamber brought fresh challenges that pushed the crew to their limits. They faced environments that switched between freezing cold and burning heat every few minutes. They solved puzzles that required understanding physics in ways no human had ever imagined. They fought mechanical guardians that adapted to every strategy they tried. But slowly, something remarkable began to happen. The crew started to change. Dr. Parker was the first to notice it. "Captain, our exposure to the exotic energies in this place is affecting us on a cellular level. Not harmful, but evolutionary." Webb felt it too. His thoughts were clearer, his reflexes faster. When he looked at the ship's systems, he could understand them in ways that had been impossible before. Around him, his crew was experiencing similar changes. Emma Hayes discovered she could interface directly with the ship's computers using only her thoughts. Tom Harrison began to understand engineering principles that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Even the ship's AI, which they called Aria, was evolving, becoming more creative and intuitive. This place isn't trying to kill us, Webb realized one day as they faced their 100th challenge. It's trying to make us stronger. Years passed in the crystal maze. The crew learned to work together in ways they had never imagined possible. They shared knowledge directly, mind to mind. They developed new technologies by combining human engineering with the strange materials they found in defeated test chambers. The ship itself began to change. Hull plates were replaced with crystal alloys that could shift between solid and energy states. The engines were rebuilt using principles that made faster-than-light travel look primitive. Even the bridge was transformed, becoming a living interface that responded to the crew's thoughts and emotions. "We're not the same people who entered this place," Emma said one day, looking at her hands, which now glowed softly with internal energy. Captain Webb nodded, feeling the weight of their transformation. His body was stronger, his mind expanded beyond human limits, but he was still himself. Still responsible for his crew. The question is, what are we becoming? The answer came when they reached the deepest chamber. Here, the crystal walls showed them images of the galaxy outside. They saw fleets of alien ships fleeing in terror from something that consumed entire star systems. They saw darkness spreading across space, swallowing everything in its path. "The Void Bringer," Webb whispered, understanding flooding through his enhanced consciousness. This whole place was designed to prepare someone for that. Parker studied the images with his evolved perception. Whoever built this facility knew that something terrible would come for the galaxy. They created this place to forge the weapon that could stop it. Webb looked around at his transformed crew, his evolved ship, and felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settle on his shoulders. "Then we'd better finish our training. The galaxy is going to need us." Outside the crystal walls, more chambers were opening, revealing the final tests that would complete their transformation from explorers into something the universe had never seen before. 10 years after the Prometheus vanished, space above Earth's moon suddenly tore open like ripping cloth. What came through made every sensor in the solar system scream warnings that their operators couldn't understand. The ship that emerged looked nothing like the vessel that had disappeared a decade ago. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of Earth Defense Command, staring at readings that made no sense. "What am I looking at?" she asked her science officer. It's definitely the Prometheus, but..." Lieutenant David Chen paused, checking his instruments again. "The hull appears to be made of living crystal. It's shifting between different states of matter. Our scanners can't get a stable reading on its size or mass." The evolved Prometheus hung in space like a jewel made of captured starlight. Its surface flowed like liquid metal, but sparkled like diamond. Energy patterns danced across its hull in colors that human eyes had never seen before. Where the old ship had been 3 kilometers long, this one seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. "Are they still human?" Sullivan asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, a communication reached them. But it didn't come through their radio systems. Instead, the words appeared directly in their minds, clear and warm and unmistakably familiar. "This is Captain Marcus Webb of the UES Prometheus. We have returned with knowledge the galaxy will need. The Void Bringer is coming for Earth." Sullivan felt her blood turn cold. She had heard the reports from the outer colonies, the terrified messages from Galactic Council ships fleeing something that devoured entire star systems. "Captain Webb, this is Admiral Sullivan. Are you still you?" The mental voice that responded carried both sadness and hope. "We are more than we were, Kate. But we're still human where it counts. And right now, humanity needs what we've become." Across the solar system, emergency alerts were already sounding. The thing called the Void Bringer had appeared at the edge of human space, and where it passed, reality simply ended. Stars went out. Planets vanished. Even space itself seemed to retreat from its presence. Galactic Council fleets were in full retreat, their most powerful weapons useless against the approaching darkness. Ambassador Veltar's panicked message reached Earth within the hour. "The Council formally requests any assistance humanity can provide. Our dreadnoughts, our quantum cannons, our reality disruptors, none of them work. It's not destroying our ships. It's removing them from existence entirely." Captain Webb's response came with absolute certainty. "We know. We've been preparing for this moment for 10 years. All Council ships, maintain your distance. Do not engage." The evolved Prometheus began moving toward the approaching threat with impossible speed. Its crystal hull sang with harmonies that made nearby ships' computers crash and restart. Inside the vessel, The transformed crew worked with perfect coordination, their enhanced minds linked while still maintaining their individual personalities. Webb stood at the heart of his ship, no longer needing a traditional bridge. The entire vessel responded to his thoughts now, and he could feel every system, every energy flow, every quantum fluctuation in its structure. Around him, his crew moved through spaces that folded in on themselves, reaching any part of the ship instantly. "Remember what we learned," Webb's voice reached every crew member simultaneously. "This isn't about winning a war. It's about understanding what lies beyond survival." Emma Hayes, her body now glowing with soft internal light, monitored sensors that could perceive 17 different dimensions. "Captain, I'm detecting the Void Bringer's approach vector. It'll reach Earth in 6 hours at current speed." Dr. James Parker, whose enhanced mind could process information at quantum speeds, studied the entity through instruments that existed partially outside normal reality. "Sir, it's not what we expected. The destructive force we're seeing, that's just the surface. There's something else underneath, something ancient and lonely." Tom Harrison, now more machine than man but still recognizably human in his thoughts, felt the ship's evolved engines responding to his will. "All systems ready, Captain. The modifications we've made should allow us to survive contact with the entity long enough to attempt communication." As they approached the Void Bringer, Webb could see why the Council fleets had fled in terror. It wasn't just a ship or creature, it was an absence-given form, a hole in reality that stretched across light years. Where it passed, the very laws of physics seemed to break down and reassemble themselves in alien patterns. "It's beautiful," whispered Security Chief Lisa Bennett, her enhanced eyes seeing energy patterns that revealed the entity's true nature. "Terrifying, but beautiful. Like a storm made of pure possibility." The Council ships watched from a safe distance as the Prometheus approached certain destruction. Admiral Sullivan's voice reached them over long-range communications. "Marcus, whatever you're planning, be careful. We can't lose you again." Webb smiled, feeling the weight of 10 years of impossible challenges that had forged them into something new. "We're not the same crew that left Earth, Kate. We've learned things that no human was meant to know. But more importantly, we've learned why we needed to know them." The Void Bringer seemed to notice their approach. Its destructive aura intensified, reality warping around it like heated glass. But instead of fleeing, the Prometheus continued forward, its crystal hull beginning to resonate with frequencies that touched the very foundations of existence. "All crew, prepare for contact," Webb announced. "We're about to discover if 10 years in hell was worth it." The evolved ship entered the Void Bringer's influence zone, and instead of being destroyed, something incredible happened. The Prometheus began to sing, a harmony that reached across dimensions and touched something deep within the ancient entity's core. For the first time in eons, the Void Bringer slowed its advance, as if recognizing something it had been searching for across the vast emptiness of space. The real test was about to begin, and everything the galaxy had ever known hung in the balance. The Void Bringer loomed before them like a living nightmare. Captain Marcus Webb felt his enhanced consciousness touch the edge of something so vast and ancient that it made his transformed mind real. The entity stretched across space, a wound in reality itself that seemed to devour light and matter with endless hunger. "Captain," Dr. James Parker's voice resonated through their shared mental link, "I'm reading something impossible. The destruction patterns aren't random. There's intelligence behind them, but it's operating on a scale we can barely comprehend." Through the Prometheus's evolved senses, Webb could see the truth that had terrified entire civilizations. The Void Bringer wasn't just destroying, it was testing. Every planet it consumed, every fleet it erased from existence, had been given a chance to prove something. They had all failed. Emma Hayes gasped as her expanded awareness touched the entity's outer consciousness. "It's not evil, Captain. It's lonely. So incredibly lonely. It's been carrying out the same task for millions of years, waiting for someone to understand." The revelation hit Webb like a physical blow. It's looking for something specific. Someone who can pass a test that no one else has been able to pass. As the Prometheus drew closer, reality began to break down around them. The crystal hull of their ship should have shattered under the impossible stresses, but their 10 years of evolution had prepared them for exactly this moment. The vessel held together through pure will and technology that existed beyond normal physics. Tom Harrison's voice echoed through the ship's living systems. "Hull integrity holding, but Captain, the energy patterns are trying to communicate with us. It's like the entity is speaking in a language made of pure mathematics." Webb closed his enhanced eyes and opened his consciousness to the alien communication. What he found there shattered every assumption about the threat they faced. Images flooded his mind, not of destruction, but of a civilization so advanced that they had faced the ultimate end of everything. "My God," he whispered. "They weren't destroyed by the Voidbringer. They became it." The truth was staggering. Eons ago, a species had evolved far beyond anything the current galaxy could imagine. But they had discovered that the universe itself was dying, heading toward a heat death that would claim all consciousness, all possibility of life or growth. Faced with this ultimate ending, they had made a choice that defied comprehension. They had transformed themselves into a test, a living trial that would span millions of years. The Voidbringer was their legacy, a cosmic examination designed to find species capable of transcending their origins and taking responsibility for the continuation of all life. Every civilization it encountered, Webb realized, his voice carrying across the ship, was given the same opportunity we're being given right now. The chance to prove they could evolve beyond their limitations. Lisa Bennett's enhanced tactical awareness showed her the pattern. The attacks, the destruction, they weren't random violence. They were final exams. And every species that tried to fight it with conventional weapons failed automatically. Dr. Parker's expanded intellect processed the implications at quantum speed. The testing facility where we spent 10 years, it was preparation for this moment. The precursor race built it to create the species that could pass their ultimate test. The Voidbringer's assault on reality intensified around them, but now Webb understood what was really happening. It wasn't trying to destroy the Prometheus. It was probing them, testing their ability to maintain coherence and purpose under impossible pressure. "All crew," Webb announced, his voice carrying the weight of cosmic understanding, "this isn't a battle. It's a graduation exam. 10 years ago, we were explorers. Today, we prove whether we've become something worthy of the responsibility they're offering us." The communication from the entity became clearer as the crew's enhanced minds learned to interpret its alien language. Images flowed between them, visions of a universe where consciousness could survive the heat death, where intelligence could shepherd new realities into existence, where death itself became just another challenge to overcome. But the responsibility was staggering. To accept the Precursor's legacy meant becoming guardians not just of their own galaxy, but of the fundamental principles that allowed life to exist at all. "It's asking us to become gods," Emma whispered, her voice filled with awe and terror. "No," Webb corrected, understanding flooding through him. "It's asking us to become gardeners. Caretakers of possibilities." The Precursors discovered that evolution doesn't stop with intelligence, it continues beyond death, beyond physical existence, into something that can nurture new universes. The test reached its climax as the Voidbringer focused its full attention on the Prometheus. Reality twisted around them like liquid glass, and for a moment that lasted eternity, the crew experienced what it meant to exist beyond the normal boundaries of space and time. They saw the death of stars, the cooling of galaxies, the final entropy that waited at the end of everything. But they also saw the possibility of new beginnings, of consciousness so evolved that it could kindle new realities from the ashes of the old. "We accept," Webb said simply, speaking for his entire crew, his entire species. "We understand the responsibility, and we accept it." The moment he spoke those words, the Voidbringer began to change. The destructive aura that had terrified entire civilizations faded, revealing its true nature. What emerged was beautiful beyond description, a consciousness so vast and benevolent that it made the transformed humans weep with joy. The entity that had once been the Precursor race welcomed them into an understanding that spanned dimensions. The galaxy's test was over, and for the first time in millions of years, it had found a species capable of inheriting the ultimate responsibility. The age of destruction was ending. The age of conscious evolution was about to begin, with humanity serving as the first guardians of infinite possibility. 6 months after the universe changed forever, Captain Marcus Webb stood before the reformed Galactic Council in a chamber that had been redesigned to accommodate new realities. The walls themselves were alive now, pulsing gently with energy patterns that helped different species communicate across barriers that had once seemed impossible to cross. Webb looked different from the man who had vanished 10 years ago. His body glowed softly with internal light, and his eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. But when he smiled, it was still unmistakably human, still warm and reassuring. "The entity you knew as the Voidbringer was never our enemy," Webb explained to the assembled representatives. "It was our teacher, waiting millions of years for students capable of graduating to the next level of existence." Ambassador Veltar of the Centauri Alliance shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The proud species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive now struggled to understand their new role in the galaxy. And what exactly does this graduation mean for the rest of us? Behind Webb, the transformed Prometheus hung in space like a living cathedral. Its crystal hull had become the headquarters of something entirely new, the Threshold Guard. Inside its impossible geometries, his crew worked on projects that spanned dimensions, preparing other species for their own evolutionary challenges. It means you're no longer alone in the universe, Webb replied simply. Every civilization reaches a point where it must choose between stagnation and growth. Until now, most chose stagnation because growth seemed too dangerous. We're here to change that. Dr. James Parker materialized beside Webb, his enhanced form flickering between solid matter and pure energy. We don't rule or conquer. We identify species approaching their evolutionary threshold and help them understand what they are really choosing between. The first test case had already begun. The Altrian Empire, once the Council's greatest military power, was tearing itself apart in civil war. Traditional diplomacy had failed, but the Threshold Guard saw the real problem. The Altarians were fighting because they sensed change coming and were afraid of what it might cost them. Emma Hayes, now serving as the Guard's chief negotiator, had spent weeks on their homeworld. She didn't bring weapons or threats. Instead, she brought understanding. Your people aren't fighting about territory or resources, she had told the Altrian leaders. You're fighting about whether to remain what you've always been or risk becoming something greater. The breakthrough came when the Altarians realized that conflict was actually their test. Working together to solve their differences wasn't just about ending the war, it was about proving they could evolve beyond their conquering nature. Now, 3 months later, Altrian delegates sat in the council chamber working alongside species they had once considered enemies. Their transformation hadn't made them weak or soft. Instead, it had made them stronger in ways they were still discovering. Admiral Kate Sullivan, representing Earth in her new role as humanity's ambassador, watched the proceedings with quiet pride. 6 months ago, half these species couldn't be in the same room without starting a fight. Now look at them. Webb nodded, feeling the presence of his transformed crew spread throughout the galaxy. Tom Harrison was working with the engineer casts of 12 different worlds, helping them understand technologies that bridged the gap between science and what some called magic. Lisa Bennett was training security forces who protected not just their own people, but the growth potential of entire civilizations. The change isn't always easy, Webb admitted to the council. Evolution never is. But the alternative is to remain static until the universe moves on without you. A new crisis arrived that afternoon. Long-range sensors detected something approaching from the galactic rim, not another void bringer, but something equally ancient and potentially dangerous. The entity called itself the Silence, and wherever it passed, communication between worlds simply stopped. The old council would have panicked, would have mobilized fleets and prepared for war. Instead, they turned to the Threshold Guard with trust that would have been impossible just months earlier. Another test? Asked the Rigelian representative, her crystalline form chiming with nervous energy. Webb consulted with the transformed Prometheus, his consciousness touching the ship's living systems. The answers came back in harmonics that painted understanding directly onto his enhanced awareness. Not a test for us, he realized. A test for you. All of you working together. The revelation was startling. The Silence wasn't targeting the Threshold Guard or even Earth. It was approaching the Council world specifically, drawn by their recent cooperation. Like the Void Bringer before it, the entity was ancient beyond measure, carrying out a purpose that spanned eons. It's testing whether your unity is real or just an act put on for our benefit, Webb explained. The only way to prove your evolution is genuine is to face this challenge without our direct intervention. Fear rippled through the chamber, but it was different from the panic that had gripped them during the Voidbringer crisis. This fear was mixed with determination, with the knowledge that growth required risk. Dr. Parker's enhanced perception showed him the deeper pattern. The universe has layers of evolution, each with its own guardians and teachers. We've become shepherds for this level of development, but there are others watching over us as well. As the council delegates began planning their response to the Silence, Webb felt a profound satisfaction. They weren't asking the Threshold Guard to solve their problem for them. They were asking for advice, for guidance, but accepting that this challenge was theirs to face. The garden is growing, Webb murmured to Emma as they watched species that had been enemies for centuries work together on solutions no single civilization could have developed. Outside the council chambers, the Prometheus sang with harmonies that resonated across dimensional barriers. The song carried hope and challenge in equal measure, reaching out to younger civilizations throughout the galaxy and beyond. The age of guardianship had begun, and the universe itself was listening to see what these new gardeners of consciousness would help grow from the seeds of infinite possibility.